Okay, so welcome everyone to this episode of Language Learning Around the World. This is interview number 13, and I'm really excited to introduce today's amazing guest, Vivienne Zhao. She's from Canada, but she's originally from China and has lived in the US and England. She is a speech language pathologist with more than 20 years of experience, and she has a master's in speech language pathology from McGill University. She's an accent coach. Her site is accentreductionspecialist.com. You can also find her on LinkedIn, where she writes a newsletter. And her mission is to help non-native English speakers become effective communicators using science-based accent modification techniques. And she offers one-to-one Zoom lessons, group training, and workshops. And she speaks Mandarin, English, and French. So welcome, Vivienne.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jeff. That was an awesome introduction. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm very excited. Yes, I'm based in Montreal, but I've lived all over the world when I was younger, and I speak multiple languages. And I'm first and foremost a speech language pathologist. If you guys don't know what that is, not many people do. If you've watched the movie King's Speech, in the movie,
amazing.
I usually refer to that movie because everybody knows that movie, right? Yeah. So in the movie, the King of England had a stutter, and he needed a speech. Somebody to help him to get over that stutter and help him to become a public speaker, an effective public speaker. And that person who helped him, he was a real person in history, and he was one of the pioneers in our field, and he was a speech language pathologist. And so I'm a speech language pathologist. We usually have a degree, a graduate degree in communication sciences and disorders, and it's a very wide field. So some of us work with stutterers, some of us work with kids with autism, some of us work with Parkinson's patients, elderlies who have had a stroke, Alzheimer's, laryngectomies, tracheotomy patients. Yeah, so anything and everything to do with speech and language disorders. Okay, and one of the specializations is accent reduction, which is not a disorder, but a difference, right? Yeah, so it's a field, it's a specialized field in speech language pathology, even though it's not a pathology. Okay. But we help basically people, native speakers and non-native speakers, to become confident and clear and effective speakers by working on basically how the manner they speak. And the accent modification or the accent reduction part is really just a byproduct of working on clarity and effectiveness of the communication skills.
So you've explained speech language pathology. What are the components of an accent?
What are the components of an accent? Okay, it has many different levels. The most basic level is what we call segmental level, which is the speech sound production level, which are the consonants and the vowels, right? Okay. The consonants, the vowels, the syllabic structure, so basically how we this part is what usually people call the pronunciation part. Right? And then we have what we call super segmental, which is beyond speech sound production. So that's the level is where we look into syllabic stress, word stress in a phrase, intonation. That's what's like the melodic part of speech. right? Of a language, of a specific, every language has its own specific melody. You may, hear people talking from afar, and you don't really hear the words yet, but from the way they speak, you can kind of guess which language they're speaking in, right? And that unique melody of a language is super segmental level. Okay. And that is also a very important part of an accent. So studies have shown that targeting the segmental and the super segmental levels individually, without touching the other parts, they both lead to a significant accent change.
So are there parts of that process that are more common for people to have problems with or need changes in? Are there parts that are more difficult, or does it depend on the individual or their native language, or what?
Yeah, it's quite individual, okay? But as a general rule, and from my experience as an accent coach, that I would say all my clients, 100% of them needed to, needed is not the correct word. They will both have goals in segmental and super segmental levels, right? And so all of them, 100% of them have needed targeting, basically, on both levels. And it happens, but I haven't met anybody who's able to produce all the sounds in English, correctly, accurately, and only have difficulties at the stress and intonation and rate of speech and whatnot level, and vice versa. So usually it's both. And some people, what's individual is that some people may have more difficulties at the segmental level, and some have more difficulties at the super segmental level. And that is often dependent on their native language. And which part is more difficult? I will have to say the super segmental level is usually much more difficult to grasp and to practice than the segmental levels. Believe it or not, the vowels and the consonants they're usually quite easy. They're usually quite easy to acquire and to practice and to transfer to real life, while the super segmental level needs usually much more practice, and sometimes it will be difficult for some people to actually implement it in real life. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is age a factor in accent reduction? In your experience?
Is age a factor in accent reduction?
Like, do you work with children or only adults, or?
I don't work with children because children don't need accent reduction.
Right.
Children don't need accent reduction. There is what we call a critical period, right, in language learning and in accent learning, actually, and that's around adolescence. Yeah. Okay, so usually around adolescence, something changes. There is a narrowing in our ability to learn a language, and the accent part of the language is no exception. So if you learn a language before adolescence, chances are you will speak it like a native.
Right.
You won't have any difficulties with the accent. Right. But if you learn the language after adolescence, then chances are you will have an accent, whether you like it or not. It's that's the way it is. That's how our brain matures, basically. Right. Yeah, we're born with the ability to perceive all the speech sounds in this world, and slowly throughout our childhood, like very quickly, actually, we start to pay attention to only the speech sounds that are relevant to us in our environment.
Right.
And we stop paying attention to things that are not relevant to us. So very quickly, we lose this ability to perceive and to produce the speech sounds that are not in a native language. So when you're young, you learn your language. If you're parents, if you're a parent out there and you have your kid and your kid is like 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever, and you're wondering whether you should be, teaching them languages, it's yes. Teach them as many languages as you can, because there is a window of opportunity that you do not want to miss.
Right. Okay, that's good. And I've seen some of the great testimonials that you have on your website, and it looks like you have people from all over who have different L1s. Are there particular L1s that are more challenging with regard to accent reduction, or that I know your L1 is Mandarin, so you obviously can really help people from that background, but talk about the different L1s that you deal with for a little bit of.
My clients, they speak all kinds of languages. I have clients who speak Mandarin, of course, who speak Vietnamese, French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, some African languages that I actually don't know how to pronounce. And so they're really from all over the world, and they speak many L1s. Especially here in Montreal, people are very multilingual, and and they don't usually, they speak more than 2 languages. Wow. So the background is the linguistic and cultural backgrounds are very diverse. And which language background introduces the most difficulty? That is really individual. Even though your accent is influenced by your L1, how quote unquote accented you are is very individual. You can have a Mandarin speaker who who has very subtle accent versus a Mandarin speaker whose accent is so quote unquote thick that it's difficult to understand, right? So so that really depends. But if we're talking about general, as like we're really generalizing here. Right. I would say usually listeners tell me that that Asian speakers and Indian speakers, like speakers from the Indian subcontinent, are usually the most difficult to understand for them, for the listeners. Okay. Yeah.
And what drew you to choose this specialty, this niche of accent reduction?
Right. Okay. So it was quite a coincidence, actually. About 20-something years ago, I was on vacation in San Francisco, and at the same time, there was a workshop for speech pathologists. For speech pathologists who are interested in accent reduction, and I was interested because I speak multiple languages, and it was a very new field. Like, I never studied this at school. Like at school, okay. I don't know about right now. Right now, maybe, but when I was doing my master's degree, like 25 years ago, this was not part of our curriculum, and so I was intrigued. It was let's take the workshop. I'm here anyway, and let's see what this is. So I went to the workshop and I found it really interesting, extremely interesting. And I was starting a private practice on the side back then. I was working at the public sector at the hospitals with on the stroke unit. That was my main job, and I was starting a private practice on the side. And so I decided to include it as part of my private practice. Okay. After the workshop. And after a few years, I realized that accent clients are my preferred clients. Nice. I love working with accent clients, and they're usually very motivated, extremely motivated. They are ambitious. They really want to. They're into self-improvement, professional improvement. I have a lot in common with them, and I kind of fell into it and started loving it, and decided that this is the area where I would like to focus on, because speech pathology is a very, very wide field, and I dabbled in many subfields of speech pathology before really settling on accent modification.
Okay, that's fascinating. So you have a lot of language learning experience yourself. So how has that impacted your work?
Well, because I learned and also lived in multiple language environments, and had to modify my own accent a few times and learn new languages. I feel that I have an understanding of where my clients are coming from and what their struggles are. And I'm able to relate to them. I'm able to use my own personal experience to help them with their struggles and to help them reach their goals. So.
Great. And on your website, you talk about career prejudice and discrimination based on accented speech. Can you talk a little bit about that? Yes,
unfortunately, it's a thing. Discrimination and stereotype based on your accent. It's been shown in studies that it takes as little as 30 seconds of conversation before somebody would develop a stereotypical idea of who you are really and what you're about, just based on your accent, which is very, accents are extremely salient. We can recognize accents in filtered speech. Infants can recognize accents. It's a very salient feature. We can, it's easily recognized, and it only takes, like I said, 30 seconds of speech before we form this stereotype. And unfortunately, we may think that, I'm not one of them, but this happens in a very subtle level, subconscious level. You may not think that you may think you're immune to it, but you're not. And unfortunately, this is the case. And studies have shown that people with accents are judged to be less diligent, less loyal, less trustworthy. It's really, I hate saying this, and I hate reciting these researches, but it's real and it's true, and it's been proved over and over again in many studies. For instance, there are studies that found that people are less likely to believe in a statement, a very benign statement, if it was spoken in a foreign accent.
Okay, yeah.
Versus the native accent, right? And these kind of findings is very robust. That's just studies, but I've worked with many individuals who can relate to this at a personal level, that they feel they're being discriminated against, whether it's in employment, housing, legal system, education, customer service. It's real, it's there. And it's not just non-native speakers as well. Native accents also have a hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Like it or not, there is a hierarchy. And I've been approached by, there are many native speakers of English who seek out accent modification services. Because they feel that they are not getting the opportunities they deserve based on their accent.
Yeah, and even in movies and on TV shows, certain accents are used to represent stereotypical things, such as certain stereotypical accents are used for competence or incompetence or criminal behavior or stupidity. Unfortunately, that's
absolutely
a reality in entertainment.
Yeah, it is, and it can have a real significant impact on individuals' lives.
So what are some of the professions that your clients are in? My
clients are usually they're from various linguistic backgrounds, but I have to say that professionally, a lot of them are in tech, engineers, lawyers, wow. So in administration. So any basically profession that would that need to talk a lot. People that need to talk a lot at work, go to meetings, give presentations, give training programs, and these are usually the clients who seek out accent modification services. There are definitely individuals that do it just for them, just for themselves. I have also a lot of clients come to me and I just want people to understand me. I'm tired of repeating myself. So it has nothing to do with their work, but everything to do with their personal life and how they feel about themselves. Some people come to me and says that I hate talking on the phone because people don't understand me. I just want to be able to talk on the phone. So yeah, so the motivation behind it is very different, but when it comes to, if we're going to generalize again, we're generalizing a lot in this interview, I would say professionals who need to speak a lot, for their work.
Okay. This isn't necessarily directly related to accent reduction or speech pathology, but it's something that is interesting to me. It's usually one of the things I ask my guests. We could talk about a lot of different languages, but since you speak Mandarin, let's take a moment and talk about some of the contributions that Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese, etc., has made to the English language. So here we have ginseng, chow mein, ketchup, chopsticks. Do you know?
Ketchup is Chinese? I didn't know that.
Obviously, the pronunciation has been changed quite a bit.
Okay.
Do you know? I have another list, but do you know of any other examples?
Any other examples? I don't know. Let me think. Yin yang, ginseng, kung fu.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yeah. So I have kowtow,
Okay, yes, yes, yeah.
chow, as in to chow down or to eat some chow or puppy chow.
Chow, I thought that was Italian, no?
No, CHOW, like
Oh,
food, like
yes, so
food.
chow for Italian.
Yeah. But to eat
Chow,
or food.
to eat food. It's not Mandarin, maybe it's another dialect, maybe
Yeah.
it's Cantonese, I don't know. I don't speak Cantonese, unfortunately.
And
So
chop
it
chop.
could be chop chop? Chop chop, it could be, I don't know. Once again, it's not Mandarin, it could be another dialect.
And tea and zen.
Tea, Zen, yes, I would say, but tea, no. The Mandarin for tea is cha,
Okay.
so it's very different from tea.
Yeah.
So, but maybe another dialect. Like I said, Chinese has many
Right.
dialects, and we call them dialects because they're in the same country, but really they're different languages. My first language is actually not Mandarin. My first language is Shanghainese, which
Wow.
is the dialect that we speak in Shanghai. I'm from Shanghai, and it's linguistically different, distinct. It's a distinct language in itself, just like Cantonese and Mandarin. Like I understand 0 words in Cantonese, and people who listen, if I were to speak Shanghainese, people who Chinese people from other regions wouldn't be able to understand at all. It's a different language. It's as if we group the whole of Europe together. Let's say somebody unified Europe and decided that English were the, English is like the common language, right? So English will be the equivalent of Mandarin. And all the European languages will be equivalent to the dialects of Chinese. So Chinese actually has, I think, over, I don't know, 100 something languages. Wow. And and they are very distinct linguistically. And I'm not a linguist, but I believe like Mandarin has 4 tones, while Cantonese has like 7 or 8 or something. I don't understand that at all. And Shanghainese, which is the Wu dialect and it's really Wu language, it's not even tonal. It's not a tonal language. So so it's very, very different. So I said, tea is not from, the word is not from Mandarin.
Okay.
It could be from another Chinese language.
Okay.
Yeah.
English has borrowed a lot of words from different languages.
Yes, many different languages. Yeah. Definitely has a lot of French words.
Yeah. So before we go, are there any special tips you'd like to give to other speech pathologists or accent reduction specialists or language teachers in general or language learners? Any final thoughts? About
accents?
Yeah.
Or about accents? About accents.
Accent reduction or pronunciation.
To speech language pathologists or teachers who would like to get into accent reduction? Yeah. Okay, yes. You must love marketing. If you want to get into it. Yes, it takes a lot of marketing. It's not like if you're a speech pathologist, it's not like targeting, let's say, autistic kids, because the parents of kids who have difficulties, or the children of the elderly people who have neurological difficulties, they are very motivated to seek out help, right? Okay. While language learners, they may not even know such profession exists. They may not even know that there is such thing as accent modification or accent coaching or whatever we call ourselves, right? It's
Right.
Awareness is not at the same level, and also, you know, the motivation to seek it out, even when you know that it exists. It's more, I always call it more like a cosmetic surgery, right? Accent modification is like cosmetic surgery. It's an elective service, and you can have a very thick accent but choose not to work on it, and that's entirely up to you. Or you can have very subtle accent and decide to work on it, and that is also up to you. And so a lot of accent modification work is telling people, making people aware of your existence, making people aware of your services, making people aware of how you can help them to achieve whatever goals they have in life and in their career. So it's so it takes a lot of marketing, much more than any other field in speech pathology. I cannot say for language teachers because I'm not a teacher,
Right.
and I don't know what's involved in becoming working as a teacher. But for the speech language pathologists out there who would like to get into accent modification, I say, if you don't love marketing, even think about it.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's a great tip. So, Vivienne, it's been great talking to you, learning about what you do. It's been fascinating. Thank you for coming and sharing your experience and knowledge.
Thank you for having me. It's been
my
fun.
pleasure. And thank you for watching, and check out Vivienne on LinkedIn, Vivienne Zhao, Z-H-A-O. She writes a newsletter, and check out her website, accentreductionspecialist.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.